All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to be here with us. My name is Lindsay Gotanda. I'm the Deputy Superintendent for the district. And with me tonight, I have a fantastic team to share this presentation with you. We have our Director of Elementary Education, Dr. Susie Wildy, with us. We also have our principal from Mira Catalina Elementary, Dr. Annie Hernandez. And we also have our principal from Lunada Bay Elementary, Mr. Rafael Bernal. So welcome, everyone.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Dr. Gotanda. As she mentioned, my name is Annie Hernandez, and I'm the very proud principal of Mira Catalina. I'm going to start off our presentation tonight by sharing what exactly is dual immersion. This tends to be like the big question of like, wait, what am I getting myself into here? So dual immersion is a program that facilitates biliteracy. So it's not just bilingualism. Students, when they leave the program, will be academically fluent in reading, writing, speaking, and listening in Spanish as well as English. The goal of dual immersion is to develop academic excellence and really infiltrate with that cross-cultural learning throughout every discipline that's in the classroom. And this will be our kind of pilot into this whole program, which we're super excited about. And Spanish will be the language that we're using as this first iteration of the dual immersion program, both at Mira Catalina and at Lunada Bay. And we'll be starting with the kindergarten class, and that cohort will then continue to travel throughout their time together at each school site. What are the benefits of dual immersion? So if anybody has ever had the honor of learning another language, you think in multiple languages, you kind of bounce back and forth between the two, and it really increases your capacity to receive more information and think in bigger ways. So that's really what that cognitive dexterity is like, where you have just bigger ideas and are able to connect the dots faster and in more meaningful ways. In addition to that, studies have found that students are able to achieve that biliteracy better at a younger age and flip-flop between those two languages and code switch faster. And it also shows their aptitude to developing even into an additional language and really becoming polyglots in the future. But most importantly, it creates a strong cultural awareness of ourselves and the world around us and makes our students global citizens, not just students. I mean, we love all of our students, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying that it makes us more globally rounded and able to enter the workforce on a global level. Students who are in the biliteracy program will develop a better, they will be eligible for the seal of biliteracy in the future, which they will get a little stamp on their diploma that says, I'm bilingual. And that means not just conversationally, but you can read, write, speak, and listen at an academic level in multiple languages, which is a true honor and such a gift to every student that we're able to give that to. It makes our students more competitive, not only in the employment setting, but also opens their doors globally to study wherever they want and to really encourage that exploration and to develop that deeper sense of self and their connectedness to the world around them. And what a gift to be able to be confident and biliterate in multiple languages. Within California specifically, we have a very diverse community. No matter where you drive, you see billboards in multiple languages, you see access to everything in multiple languages. Just in walking around, we really do live in a melting pot, and being able to provide our students with that ability to interact with the world around them on a deeper level is a true joy. Here in Palos Verdes, we will be focusing on the one-way immersion model. So if you've ever done any research, you'll see that dual immersion has a couple different ways that it's structured. Either it's in the one-way space that we are creating, or it's in a two-way. We don't really have the population to facilitate a two-way immersive model, so our focus is going to be on the one-way immersive, where the vast majority of our students will come to us with English as their primary language. And so this is an important distinction, that it's not designed necessarily for students who have a native language of Spanish. Our students are primarily English speakers with primarily English speaking parents, or at least English being the primary language that is spoken at home. And so when they come to school, they are getting all of their instruction, or at least 90% at the kindergarten level, done in Spanish. So when they step into our doors, hola estudiantes y buenos días a clase, right? So everybody is going to be learning Spanish collectively as their primary language, along with how to read and write in Spanish.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Hernandez.
You're welcome.
So good evening, everyone. I'm Raphael Bernal. I am the principal of Lunada Bay Elementary. I'm so excited that we have the opportunity to bring dual immersion into our district, and Lunada Bay being one of the sites along with Miracat. Really looking forward to this opportunity. So you might be wondering why Spanish versus some of the other languages. And, really the Spanish is the most readily available curriculum out there, and also professional development. We have our current adaptations of curriculum already come in Spanish. So there are also supplemental materials that are readily available in Spanish. So being able to have the material at our fingertips is a huge plus. Another factor is the availability of bilingual credentialed teachers is a struggle in any language. However, Spanish does have the largest population, and they're more available. So that's another factor. Also, collegiality of other Spanish immersion schools and teachers. Over the past several months, we've had the opportunity to visit multiple districts and sites, from ABC Unified to Long Beach Unified. They have one of the most renowned DI programs. It's kind of the gold standard. Torrance, Lawndale, Redondo Beach, Culver City, LAUSD. So really having so many resources right at our fingertips is really supportive and will just contribute to the success of our program. Also, it's a natural pathway to go through middle school and high school already. And the program can develop over time. And dual immersion, the structure. So what does it look like? We're going with something that's considered a 90-10 model. So basically in kindergarten and first grade, 90% of the day is taught in Spanish. So the majority of the core subjects are, your language arts, math, science, social studies are taught fully in Spanish. PE will be in English. When students get to second grade, it will switch to 80% Spanish, 20% English. And as we go to third grade, you see it becomes 70% Spanish, 30% English, up through fifth and sixth grade, where it becomes the 50-50 model. Now, we also want to discuss some of the further goals of dual immersion, and it's to develop high levels of proficiency in Spanish and English, also to achieve grade level academic performance in Spanish and English, to develop children who will be more competitive in the global economy, and to take advantage of optimal window of learning a second language during primary years, and nurture the understanding of different cultures, give students an upper edge in high school and college and the workplace, develop bilingualism, biliteracy, and biculturalism, and to develop positive cross-cultural attitudes and behaviors.
So I was going to share a little bit about our curriculum. I'm Dr. Wildy, the Director of Elementary Education. So the curriculum for the dual immersion, what's fantastic about this, and part of the reason that we chose Spanish, was all of our PVPUSD adopted curriculum for English is going to be able to come in Spanish. So that includes our language arts wonders curriculum, our science STEM scopes curriculum, our math curriculum as well. And right now we are in the process of adopting a new social studies, but we have looked into it and both of them are available in Spanish. We will most likely supplement with some extra curriculum to further support our students and this program. We have at some of our school site visits learned from them some of the curriculum that they're choosing to use and learning about how it'll benefit our students. So we will look into that as well. But again, the bottom line is that the teachers are going to remain committed and focused on teaching and assessing the grade level standards. So although it's in a different language, the standards still do remain the same, and that is what our students will be learning in the classroom. So we wanted to share a little bit more about the dual immersion plan for PVP USD. So again, beginning in the 23-24 school year, we're going to be offering the dual immersion in kindergarten classes with 2 kindergartens classes. They will be following in this immersion plan for the remainder of elementary school. So that is 6 years. It's a 6-year commitment. So the way it looks is kindergarten begins. And then in the 24-25 school year, kindergarten is going to stay with our new cohort of kids starting in kindergarten. And then we've added a first grade dual immersion. And then this pathway continues. So in the 25-26 school year, 2nd grade dual immersion begins. And then we have kindergarten and 1st grade. So this path will continue until the elementary school has dual immersion in K through 5th grade. So we do have a couple of our schools here chosen. So as you know, we've got our principals here. So we have it at Mira Catalina Elementary School and Lanada Bay. We do want to add that we are going to consider adding future elementary schools or languages. But for right now, we don't want to go too big and too much where we can't support the program and make sure we're doing it properly and that we're taking our time to develop it thoughtfully. So we are starting with just the 2 and starting with Spanish. If we did look at another language, that would take some more time to get there.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wildy. So now we want to talk about whether or not immersion is right for your child. And so I think as a parent, in considering whether or not your child is appropriate for the program, there are some things that parents should consider. The first one is that, students who are most successful in the program, they have some common characteristics. And so making sure that your student is actually verbal and receptive in their native language and making sure that it's on grade level is very important. Additionally, the student commitment to possible discomfort and working through this. So I think this is something that you will know your child best. And so I give an example. I was an immersion principal in my previous life. And I remember a student saying, I don't understand why I have to be in this class because next door they're doing the exact same class in English and I don't understand what's going on in this class. So why can't I be in that class, right? So just kind of working through some of that discomfort and making sure that students are going to be committed to that. And that also speaks to, as a parent, right, making sure that you're working with your child to say you're going to be better for it in the long run. A student who demonstrates initiative and independence is really important. Because we want to make sure that they're able to kind of, be self-starters. We want students who are interested in learning, and they have to be very flexible and adaptable. Obviously, if a teacher is speaking a foreign language 90% of the day, right, students are going to have to kind of ebb and flow through some of the things that they understand. They're going to understand things through context cues and body language, but making sure that they're able to, be flexible in that environment is really important. Being able to follow 1- and 2-step directions is very important, particularly when they're doing them in a different language is going to become really critical because that is going to be harder for them. They're going to have to cue in with their listening skills a little bit better, and then making sure that they can follow through on 1- and 2-step directions. And then students who are comfortable socially, right? So when they have this discomfort of not understanding the language that's being spoken to them, being able to talk to somebody next to them to say, did you understand what they said? Or, maybe raising their hand and asking a question in front of their peers is going to become critical. And then making sure that students have age-appropriate motor skills. So, students who can use scissors to cut a circle, color within the lines, point to objects by listening directions are also going to become really important. And then last, students who are excited to learn and have a love for school, right? We want students to come into our dual immersion programming. We want them to be excited, and we want students who want to learn, because the amount of growth that students are going to have, particularly in the 1st and 2nd year of immersion, is very, very critical. And it's actually, where you're going to see a lot of growth as a parent. So what should we consider as parents if we choose immersion? So the first thing is the parent commitment. So going back to the discomfort, I'm going to take you back maybe a little bit of time ago when you first had your child and you had to strap them into the car seat and the kids didn't like being in the car seat. And even though it was the law, you knew that it was good for them and you wanted them to be safe, and really kind of having that fortitude to continue to keep on is really important, because you're going to have times where students might say, I don't want to be in this class because it's hard, or I don't understand what's happening because they're speaking in a different language. And so making sure as a parent, you have the fortitude to say, it's going to be good for you. You know, you're learning a second language. We all know the reasons why we want our children to be in immersion, but really importantly, we want to make sure that as a parent, we're not going to allow our kids to be able to tap out when things get a little bit uncomfortable for them. The second piece that we want to talk about is also that the learning development might look different than their English only peers. And so if you have a child who might be entering an immersion and you have older children, the process at which they're developing their learning, whether it's for reading or writing, is going to look very different, particularly because they're essentially doing two languages at the same time. And for some, it might even be their third language. And so that being said, I think as a parent, you just have to allow the process to kind of happen. And I like to use an analogy like a cake, right? You put all of the ingredients into, the mixing bowl, and then you put it into the oven, and, it comes out looking very different when the cake is done. And so, making sure that we are supporting their learning both in English and Spanish, right? We know that it takes about 7 years for someone to become fluent in another language. And so making sure that we're working through the process of ensuring that cake is done at the end of 7 years. And there's going to be times where you're going to ask yourself, is my child going to be able to read in English? The answer is yes, it will happen. Oftentimes people will say, by third grade, when they take their standardized testing for the first time, sometimes their scores may be lower than their peers, but by fourth and fifth grade, they end up coming right back to where they should be. And so I think that is just something as a parent to consider as you are going through this process with immersion. The third part is the cohort for 6 years. And so I can say as a former immersion principal that, the students are together for a really long time. And so just making sure that we're committed to that cohort for 6 years. And, there's going to be times where, potentially some of the kids may not be best friends, and that's okay. But that is going to be a very long time for kids to be in the same classroom together, because they do move as a cohort. Additionally, also thinking about early exit from the program and the impact. So also like baking a cake, right? If you take the cake out of the oven too soon, it's not a finished cake. And so really kind of looking at if, as a parent, right, the commitment, and you might say, gosh, they're wearing me down every day and my kiddo is in second grade and I'm not necessarily sure if we should continue. Just making sure that you understand that if a student were to exit the program early, right, there could be an impact because they don't have as fully developed English reading skills, because they have been learning a different language 90% of their school day for the last, 2.5 years, depending on the point that you decide that you want to pull a child out of the program. So that is something to consider, because I do think that there could be an impact. And there's times where, students are able to go into an English classroom and kind of catch up, but there's also times where, the school is going to have to really circle the wagons and determine what types of supports and how impactful the dismissal of the program or the leaving the program would be on the student. So enrollment. And so there were a lot of questions in the Q&A about enrollment. So priority enrollment will go to students who have Lunada Bay or Mira Catalina as their home school. And while Spanish speakers don't get priority, it is because it is a one-way program. They are not precluded from the program. So one of the questions that was in the Q&A is, how do we ensure that it won't be only native Spanish speakers, or making sure that it is a one-way program, but it is going to be based on a lottery system for all students in the district. So if class capacity is not reached with the students that are in the residential boundaries of Lunada Bay or Mira Catalina, it is possible for students outside of those two school boundaries to put in for the lottery. So I know that there's families from other homeschools, and so if you'd like to put in the lottery, then you're able to do that. For families who move into the district late, they can still enter the lottery if space remains. And if there's a wait list, students from Lunada Bay and Mira Catalina homeschool students will get first priority on the wait list, but nonetheless, we will make sure that we move them through the lottery, and then we'll move through the wait list. So what is the application process? How do I even, get into the lottery? So first things first is you would complete the two-step enrollment process, and that must be completed prior to applying for the lottery. So step one is actually going onto our website, and you can see under enrollment, and I'll give you the website at the end of our presentation, you're able to go ahead and start the process of enrolling, and actually our enrollment window opened today. So happens to, coincidentally be the day that we're doing this presentation, but you would have to complete that two-step process before you can actually put in for the lottery. The lottery window will be from March 1st to April 3rd, so nobody has to make a decision today, but it also gives everybody about a month to determine what lottery they would like to go to. This lottery also aligns with our Cornerstone lottery window. So if you're considering Cornerstone, you can actually go ahead and put in for dual immersion and for Cornerstone. And you would have to indicate which dual immersion school you are applying for. So if you have a preference for Lunada Bay over Mira Catalina, you would have to put that preference while you're doing the lottery application. Students may not apply for more than one dual immersion school, but you can apply for dual immersion and for Cornerstone. So you can put it in priority order. You can say number one, my choice is dual immersion at Mira Catalina, and number two, it is Cornerstone. You just have to rank your preference. And then last, students will be notified of the lottery status by April 27th. So you'll know whether or not the student is in dual immersion by April 27th. And then students who apply after the 3rd will be placed on the wait list. So I do know that some of our other enrollment windows actually open on April 3rd. And so if the enrollment window opens late, then you're more than welcome to put your preference for immersion and we can put you on a wait list.
So there are some very common questions that people do ask along the way. Probably one of the most common is, as a parent, do I need to speak Spanish? How am I going to help my child with their homework? I don't speak any Spanish. Don't worry. No, as a parent, you do not need to speak Spanish. Just continue on your normal routines as you would in English. So this is where kids really develop that bilingualism and the ability to have the mental flexibility to switch between two languages. What if dual immersion is not a good fit for the student? Well, if dual immersion is not working, just like any other process, we would have multiple meetings to determine what our next steps would be and how to properly support our students. Will a sibling get priority into the dual immersion program? Well, not exactly. You will have to enter the lottery just like you would the first time. If a kindergarten student gets in, can their older siblings switch to the schools together? An interdistrict transfer would need to be completed. If space permits, a move could be possible.
All right, a couple more questions here. Can English learners or students with an IEP apply for dual immersion? Absolutely, yes. All students can apply. Can students switch dual immersion schools? No, students are placed based on their application. If a student needs to switch schools, they would need to re-enter the lottery. How can parents and guardians help students with dual immersion program? The district and classroom teachers will be providing professional learning opportunities for parents and guardians. And what is the plan for dual immersion students when they get to middle school? PVP Unified School District will build a pathway for intermediate schools.
Great, thank you so much. So again, a few more questions. And again, we know there's just a lot with this new program, so we want to try to get as many as we can. And if we're not getting your questions, please do feel free to use the Q&A as we will be answering them in there as well. But we had another question here. Will you have TK as an option? So right now for the upcoming, the 23-24 school year, TK is not an option. Right now, if you're following, TK is transitioning to a universal 4-year-old program. So because of that, our TK as we used to know it is changing where it's much younger. The students who are turning 5 are not turning 5 until April instead of starting the school year and turning 5 soon after. So we're currently redesigning the curriculum and looking more into that. So we want to make sure we have a solid foundation of our expanding universal TK program before we bring it into our dual immersion program. And the other question, will students be able to receive academic support if they are having trouble with dual immersion? So yes, and part of that is the best first instruction should always begin in the classroom with the teacher who's creating the lessons, who's designing differentiated instruction, and giving the additional support to those who might need it to get caught up. And if a student does need more support, the site team will meet together as a team and they will determine the next steps to help the student be successful. Will tutoring in English or Spanish help accelerate my child's learning? So no, it's not going to. And in fact, it could potentially disrupt that learning process. So a little bit as Dr. Gotanda was talking about the cake analogy and using the baking, we don't want to disrupt the process. Something's baking. They say, don't open the oven too early. We don't want to hurt what's in there. So again, this is really a lot of trusting this process. There's a lot of research that has gone into the structure of dual immersion. So if they're in the dual immersion Spanish, we are making sure that we're supporting it part of this process. So we want to help with the students achieve the biliteracy, and it will happen over time. Again, a lot of the trusting the process and what's going into it. And how will we know if our child is making progress? This is a common concern and question that we're getting. Students will be receiving report cards just like they always have. However, rather than getting assessed on the English standards, it's how they're doing in Spanish. But again, we are focused on our standards and we will continue to assess students, provide feedback related to the acquisition of Spanish as they go along. And we do have some next steps as well.
So our next steps, the first is parents who are interested should enroll in PVP USD. And enrollment, as I shared, begins today. Next, we are going to be hiring and training our teachers. We're going to procure our curriculum and plan for our dual immersion parent info sessions at the sites for August, and then we'll be starting our program. So we have some sequential steps that we have to take, but we are very ready and we're really excited for everyone to enroll and then our lottery window to open. We do have some remaining questions that are in the chats. And so I will go ahead and just answer some of these questions. So one of the questions is whether or not we accept any out-of-district students. So the district does actually take specific permits. So for example, we do take permits for students who are employees of anyone who's in the peninsula. So if you are working in the city of Rolling Hills, Palos Verdes Peninsula, Palos Verdes Estates, or Rancho Palos Verdes, we do accept what is called an Allenville permit. We also take active military permits, and we also have grandparent permits, but they are all different types of permits. Grandparents in Lunada Bay are the same lottery as non-Lunada Bay residents. That is correct, because that is considered a permit. And I can't give any hard answers in terms of how many students we expect to take through the lottery, because we don't actually know how many students are interested until we actually have enrolled numbers, and then we have lottery numbers, and we have to determine that based on how many people put in for the lottery. So we have some anecdotal information, right, where TK parents are saying that they're interested, but we don't actually have any hard data on that just yet. I will go ahead and put up some different emails and our website. So our website is www.pvpusd.net. And if you're interested, please take a look at our website. It has tons of information on there. Please feel free to look at the enrollment page. If you have any questions, you can email our enrollment center at enroll@pvpusd.net. We do ask that you're patient because enrollment did open today, so it is very, very busy in our enrollment center. If you have specific Lunada Bay questions, you can actually email Mr. Bernal at bernalr@pvpusd.net. If you have Mira Catalina questions specifically, you can talk to Dr. Hernandez at hernandeza@pvpusd.net. And if you have any questions for Dr. Wildy, and I apologize, I didn't realize my camera was not working. And so if you have any questions for us, you can email us at edservices@pvpusd.net. That being said, I don't see any other questions in the chat just yet. So we'll leave it open for just a second. And then if there's other questions that come through, we'll be able to answer them. Let's see. Oh, we do have one question. It says, what happens if we completed the application but could be moving that would fit in a new school? Is there a way to go back and update our preference to include our request for immersion, or does everyone sign up for the lottery? So everyone will sign up for the lottery. And so let's say, for example, you're new to our district and you are living in, I'm just going to use an example, the Soleado area, and you decide that you want to be a part of immersion. You can put your name into the lottery. Another example is, let's say, for example, you live in Lunada Bay area and you don't put your name in the lottery, and then you say, hey, just kidding, I want to put my name into the lottery, and the lottery is closed, then you'll immediately go to the wait list. And again, Lunada Bay and Mira Catalina residents will go to the top of that wait list. This is a really great question. Dr. Wildy, Dr. Hernandez, or Mr. Bernal, do you want to answer this question? How often do immersion students interact with the other students at school?
Oh, I'll go. So the other students, anytime that we would have any other students interacting together would be during recess. So anytime we have kids who are maybe in their counter teachers' classrooms, they all play out on the playground together. They would be in PE together. They have staggered library times. So whenever we have those lunch recess times where kids get to actually play with people outside of their classroom, the dual immersion students would be there right along with their other grade alike peers.
Fantastic, thank you. We have a new enrollee, yay. So someone just enrolled and said, is our next step to wait for March to enter the lottery? Yes, you do have to actually finish step 2. So that means that you have to bring in all of your documentation. And then once you bring in your documentation, then you'll be able to be part of the lottery. And the lottery, Dr. Wildy, correct me if I'm wrong, it goes from March 1st through April 3rd. Those are the dates for the lottery, March 1st through April 1st. All right, this recording will be available online, so we will actually post it to, we have a dual immersion section under our enrollment, as well as our educational services page on the website. So we will be definitely doing that. And we can also send a follow-up email to all of our participants with the recording. Next question, if we are a family that will probably move away before the end of 6th grades, it sounds like this program may not be a good fit since we wouldn't finish baking the cake. It depends on really when you transfer, and it also depends on if you're moving to a school that would have an immersion program. So one of the things that we've consistently heard from immersion schools is that if your child was in an immersion program in another district, they will take other immersion students. So I don't want you to think that the cake won't be finished if you're able to get into another immersion school. If it's going to be 5th grade, I would say that it's actually a good gamble to take, because I think by the end of 5th grade, because the program gets to 50-50, the students actually are already pretty well developed in English. I think we get the most concern when we're talking about our primary grades after kinder, 1st and 2nd, 3rd grade even might be a little bit early. But as the program decreases in Spanish and increases in English, and that was the slide that Mr. Bernal had up, that it gets to 50-50 by the time they get to 4th and 5th grade, that they are much more well developed. So Dr. Wildy, maybe you can answer this question. Are teachers going to move up with the class each year? Will we be hiring a new teacher for each cohort?
Yes, so we are looking to hire new teachers with each grade level. So our kindergarten teachers, and part of that is we're going to be doing a lot of our training with our teachers. So when we have our kindergarten teachers placed in kindergarten, we are going to make sure they really have a solid foundation of that. And as we know, our teachers grow with time and get better each year at that. And so we will be having our kindergarten teachers most likely remain in kindergarten, and then we will hire new teachers to start again the next year. So we'll have a K-1 with the new teachers on there.
Great, thank you.
I did see a question about parent education classes. So I was going to just speak to that real quickly, that we do want to do parent education classes. That is part of this commitment that the district has with our parents as well. We do want you to make sure you feel supported along the way. So we will be helping have a greater understanding of what dual immersion consists of, how you can support your child, because we know it is going to be a different experience, especially if you've got other kids that have gone through the school, making sure that we're helping trust that process and support it. So we will be doing some parent education.
Great. We have another question, and it's a great question. My child is receiving speech as a TK child. Do we have to re-enroll in the district? So if you're currently enrolled in our district as a TKer, you don't have to re-enroll because you're already a student with us, but you do have to do the lottery. So that piece is actually really important. So everyone's going to get an email that says our lottery is open if you're interested in doing, Cornerstone, dual immersion, interdistrict transfer. You want to go to a different school. We open up all of those windows and we send notifications via email. So please look out for those emails. I will also give as just kind of a tip, check your spam too, or make sure that you are keeping the PV, it's called PV info, and you take that out of your junk and your clutter, because oftentimes we will send things, and I do know that it does go to some people's junk and clutter boxes. Okay, so that being said, I don't see any, there's another question. Will there be any type of parent resources available? And I'm not sure exactly what that means, but we did just talk about parent education. So we will be doing some parent education pieces with the parents just to make sure that they're feeling comfortable. I also know that if there's any concerns or questions, I think your teacher would be a really great person to talk to, because they can also give you tips for parents to do things at home with your children. But again, as a parent, you don't have to speak Spanish, right? That is our job, is to teach the students everything that they need so that they can go home and they can do their homework. We want you to keep your same routines that you have at home, right? Read to your children, do the same, bedtime routine. If your child is going to automatically start singing in Spanish, they're going to start coming home and they're going to start naming objects. It's going to organically happen. So again, right, we're going to put all those ingredients in the cake. We're going to throw it in the oven and the cake is going to come out beautifully built and baked. And so I think one of the things you have to do is just really, as a parent, just, watch your child learn and grow and support them as much as you can, because we also want that other language, right, whatever their home language is, to continue to develop as well.
More questions in here. Is there a certain level of experience you are seeking in the teachers in your search?
Yes, so that is a great question. We are actually looking for teachers who have what's called a BCLAD, and that is a bilingual certification. So they have to have passed a number of tests or have been a Spanish major in college in order to receive that BCLAD. And so most of them are fluent Spanish speakers, or they have done extensive study in Spanish. We could have BCLAD in other languages, but again, back to Spanish being the most common for staff. But we do definitely want to make sure that we are looking for certified teachers. And yes, you can apply for both dual immersion and Cornerstone Lottery at the same time. Those windows are open at the exact same time. So you just have to put in your preference of which you prefer. So you have to prioritize, do I want Cornerstone first, or dual immersion at Mira Catalina, or do I want dual immersion at Lunada Bay as my first choice and Cornerstone as my second? So we just have to make sure that you clearly prioritize those. Okay. And so another question, we want both kids to go to the same school. We are new to the district, but not in Mira Catalina and Lunada Bay. Can we apply knowing they will be both accepted? If one is accepted and the other doesn't, it won't work for our family. Will you also have after school homework help for students that don't have Spanish speaking parents? So that's two questions. So let me answer the enrollment question first. So the first question is, if you're new to the district and you have one child who gets in and one child who does not, it is going to be space available. So I think as a parent, if you have a child who gets into the immersion program and you have a child who doesn't, you'll just have to make the decision. Let's say, for example, second grade is full, but immersion kinder is open. You'll have to make the decision of whether or not you want to split. And it sounds like it may not work for this family, but some families will split so that their child could be in a particular program, or you can choose not to do the immersion program and put both kids at the same school, which would possibly be your home school. And then if my child is in TK already, should I wait for the dual enrollment open email and you have to sign up for the lottery? That is correct. Don't have to do anything else. Dr. Wildy, are standardized tests taken in English or Spanish?
Yes, we are going to be taking the standardized test in Spanish, the California Spanish assessment, but that will not begin until our students get to 3rd grade. Right now, we do currently take an iReady diagnostic starting in kindergarten with our students, and we are looking into a Spanish version of the diagnostic as our students progress through. So we will have some of that data to look at how our students are performing in Spanish on those diagnostic assessments, and the standardized test as well as they get older and are able to take those, but that won't be for a few years. And then
there is not transportation available for students by the district. Obviously, if a child is a kinder student, you probably don't want to send them on PV Transit, but oftentimes families do set up, once you start meeting other families, they oftentimes will set up carpools. I think that's very common. So potentially, since we have, students who could be coming from different parts of the peninsula, there may be a carpool that could be work for your family. If you get into the immersion program but decide not to do it, do you lose your spot at Cornerstone, or could you default back to Cornerstone if your child was already in TK? Susie, why don't you go ahead and answer that one?
So there is a window in the enrollment time where you are able to say that you've got offered something, but you're no longer going to want it. So it would be a matter of getting that information in quickly to the school to say that we don't want that. We got into the dual immersion, but we're not interested. But I would, I do think this is a big decision, the dual immersion. So, if you're going to apply, hopefully it is that you do want to take this position, that you've thought that it's the right fit for your child, that they're the right student that would benefit from this program. But there is a window in there where you can change your mind, and we'll be in touch regarding the next steps. If you did at that time put that you wanted both, however, you want to make sure you do it within that time frame where they're giving you that information.
So this is also a really great question. Will non-Spanish speaking parents be able to volunteer in the classroom? Absolutely. So again, right, we don't want to limit any parents from volunteering. And the question is like, but gosh, I don't speak any Spanish. You too will learn Spanish very quickly, let me tell you. And oftentimes, just based on, very little direction, the students will be able to be prompted. And I can guarantee you that if there's, a teacher in the classroom, they will tell you what they need from you. And so, sometimes it could be small groups, sometimes it could be, setting up different stations for a teacher. So absolutely, you can definitely volunteer in the classroom, even though you're not Spanish speaking, but you will learn, I promise.
And there was a question in there about our older students who maybe missed it about doing something at our school sites. And we do want to say that a lot of our schools are bringing before school Spanish classes to their school site. We have 4 or 5 of our elementary schools who are doing it this year. And I do know it's becoming a request with more parents asking for it. So we are looking to have more enrichment classes. Again, it won't be as thorough as a dual immersion program, but if it is some of those kind of introductory language that you want, we are bringing more of those to our schools, and we're having discussions about bringing more next year as well.
All right.
Let's see.
So how will classes be balanced without having any language assessment? Will teachers speak any English to help the transition? So in a 90-10 program, they basically speak 90% Spanish because we have music and PE, and those will be conducted in English. The vast majority of the classroom is going to be in Spanish. I'm not sure what the balanced out means. I don't know if that means whether or not we'll have some Spanish speakers and some not Spanish speakers, but again, this is a one-way immersion program, so we're not looking necessarily to have a 50% native Spanish speaker population. Okay, let's see, there's another question. Dr. Wildy, if your children speak Spanish and a second language already, will it be too confusing for them to pick up a third language, Spanish, in the dual immersion program?
So no, I think one of those things is students will, be able to acquire a third language. I don't know the specific levels that the student has at home, if they're fluent in the two language, if they're already biliterate. This is kind of one of the benefits of it. We do have a lot of students in our district who come knowing two languages. So again, it is going to be unique to your child and your situation at home. It does happen. It is possible. And, one of the things, if the students are in the dual immersion program now, as they get older, in high school, they will be taking a third language at that time. So it's really knowing your child. It is possible, they can do it, but again, you want to make sure it's the right fit.
So great question. And maybe our principals can speak to this one. Since these students will be with the same peers throughout elementary and not having the same level of exposure to a variety of peers, since they won't have a new class each year like peers do you feel confident that students will have the same social emotional development as their peers, or would this actually be beneficial?
I'll take that one. I don't think it would be a huge difference. Lunada Bay is a small school. Currently this year, we have 2 classes at each grade level. So there's not a whole lot going on there. And the kids are going to interact with each other on the playground before school, during recess, during lunch, after school. And like Dr. Hernandez said, there's other programs like music and other fine arts things where the students will be interacting with each other and seeing each other. So I really don't think there would be any detriment to the students at all.
Dr. Hernandez or Dr. Wild, do you have anything you wanted to add?
No, Mr. Bernal summed it up perfectly, especially because during class time, students are learning and engaging with the teacher and really kind of getting the nuts and bolts of the curriculum. So those free times that allow for the social emotional development, they'll be with their peer like grade levels out kind of in the wild, so to speak.
One more question in the Q&A is whether or not there is an email sign up. So if you are enrolled, so again, going back to that 2-step enrollment process, if you've completed steps 1 and 2, or you're a current TK parent in the district, then you will automatically get that email because we send it to everybody in our database. If you have not completed the 2nd step of the enrollment process, you will not receive the email. So that second piece of coming in with your documents and having that appointment with our enrollment center is really, really important.
I think that's it for the questions.
Well, thank you, everyone. Hope that you've learned a lot about our dual immersion program, and we look forward to having a fantastic program next year. Thank you to our presenters. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Good night. Thank you.